We are told that education is the great equalizer, that in a meritocratic society, like the one that we're supposed to have, talent plus hard work equals success. But what if the terms of the race are learned by just a few, not by everyone participating in it? Pierre Bourdieu's account of social reproduction suggests that our institution, particularly our schools, don't actually create social mobility, but instead legitimize the social reproduction of those who are already on top. By his framework, schools, universities, the educational system, all work as a sophisticated sorting machine, transforming inherited privilege into earned merit. In this video essay, I'll be talking about Bourdieu and cultural capital, applying it to higher education and in the ways in which cultural reproduction becomes social reproduction. For Bourdieu, cultural capital is a set of knowledge, skills, and cultural familiarity, like knowing classical music or how to behave in an interview, that carry social value. Importantly, not everyone has access to the same cultural capital. It is unevenly distributed, and understanding cultural artifacts requires a predisposition to this. This system of predispositions is the habitus. The habitus determines which cultural capital you're exposed to, feel comfortable with, and can convincingly display. A child raised in a highly educated household develops a habitus that makes high-status cultural practices feel natural. They absorb cultural capital almost effortlessly, while others must work much harder to acquire it, and may never actually pass as authentic holders of it, because this music that you're now hearing in the background is not the same as this music. Understanding that difference is contingent upon having a certain habitus. I must mention too that the habitus and the cultural capital are dialectically intertwined. The former generates the dispositions that make certain cultural capital legible and acquirable, while accumulated cultural capital gradually refines the habitus. You must be wondering, however, why does cultural capital or the habitus matter at all? And they do matter. They matter because they're important factors in thriving academically. Bourdieu tells us that the academic market tends to sanction and to reproduce the distributions of cultural capital by proportioning academic success to the amount of cultural capital bequeathed by the family. This means, to have cultural capital is to have a functional advantage in the educational system, because the teacher or the professor is going to favor that student who can talk about their visit to a museum, even though it may not be on the curriculum, or possibly even subconsciously dislike that student that is unable to speak properly. Emphasis on the quotation marks. Properly may not actually mean anything real. Notably, these two students have different amounts of cultural capital and a different habitus, because they come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. High culture is not affordable to everyone. Bourdieu says clearly that the habitus inculcated by upper-class families gives rise to practices which, even if they are without selfish motives, such as cultural activities, are extremely profitable to the extent that they make possible the acquisition of maximum yield of academic qualifications whenever recruitment or advancement is based upon co-optation or on such diffuse and total criteria as the right presentation, general culture, and so on. So, without necessarily intending it, upper-class families are giving their kids more opportunities than those who are below them on the socioeconomic pyramid. Importantly too, the acquisition of this cultural capital happens only after continuous education that might be formal, such as in school itself, or informal, just at home, usually being a mix of both. However, and crucially, lack of cultural capital precludes the acquisition of cultural capital. This means that those who don't have cultural capital already probably don't have the instruments to acquire it either, but those who do have it most likely do have the predispositions to acquire. It's cyclical. Cultural reproduction leads to social reproduction. This is Almendra, who came to the University of Chicago with limited cultural capital and had to navigate this situation. This is her experience.
Okay. Hello, my name is Alendra and Arman. I am a second year here at the college. I don't know if this is just me, but when people talk about things that I don't really know about it, I have not experienced, I never act surprised or I try not to look out of place. And I don't know if this is considered masking or anything. I won't ever lie and say oh yeah, I've gone in international trips, boarding schools, or I don't have a cabin in the woods, I don't go skiing, but I try to be curious and just learn about it rather than just being oh, I don't know what you're talking about and I don't care, because there are multiple things that here are normal that back home we just don't have access to, and I think I try to approach it as a learning experience. I don't know if that's the correct terminology for that, but at least that's how I would put it.
Mm-hmm. But while theory is backed up by anecdotal experience, we can also look into more methodologically sound sources that are aligned with Bourdieu. For that, we have Loriot, who studied the ways in which inequality persists within educational systems. So, following the Bourdieusian tradition, she argues that child rearing heavily depends on the family's socioeconomic status, with families who are lower within it giving a totally different kind of treatment to their kids than those who do have a much better socioeconomic status. And this, in turn, impacts the attitudes and skill of their children. Loriot divides child rearing styles into two different categories. First, concerted cultivation, and then accomplishment of natural growth, with the former usually being favored by socioeconomically advantaged families, and the latter being favored by socioeconomically disadvantaged families. The key difference between these is the level of involvement from the parent into their children's lives. In the assorted cultivation style, parents actively foster and assess child's talents, opinions, and skills, while in the natural growth style, they just care for their children and allow him or her to grow naturally. A great example of how this manifests is in the organization of daily life, or more specifically, in extracurricular activities. Adults in the life of all kids in the study care for them and organize their lives to some degree, providing them with structured activities. However, the variety and the type of these activities heavily vary depending on their social classes. For example, poor or working class kids almost always have religious activities along maybe one sport or doing something near their homes. In comparison, middle class kids from the study have an unsurmountable number of activities organized by their parents: saxophone, baseball, piano, traveling, soccer team, swim team, any type of team. Many other activities are organized by them, and while not necessarily all of these provide a large amount of cultural capital, all of them provide a much more varied set of opportunities for the kids in order for them to explore and develop properly. And Loriot's results also show this. Those kids who had more extracurricular opportunities coordinated by their parents developed a stronger sense of entitlement, which means a better self-esteem and giving themselves value as individuals. Attitudes that are taught in the household end up impacting longer educational and professional trajectories. If you're socialized to act like the boss, to ask questions, to raise your voice, and to put yourself forward, you will end up being the boss. However, if you're socialized to keep quiet, to avoid raising your hand, and bringing attention to yourself, you're more likely to become the subordinate instead. Backing Bourdieu up, Loriot informs us of the long-lasting impacts of child rearing and home education. An excellent example of this mechanism in the working is looking into elite schools, where the cultural capital is rapidly legitimized into the privilege that was also its origin. Cyclically, elite universities and elite schools reproduce social class, as they reward certain types of cultural capital that they deem worthy of such treatment, although they emerge from being born in a particular habitus. In his book, Privilege, Shamus Khan discusses how students at an elite school in the USA come to believe their position reflects their individual effort and talent in a way that the structural conditions that produce them become invisible. Similarly, on the book What School Are You From? By Grompone, Reategui, and Renteria, the authors discuss how elite schools function as a pipeline to other elite universities in Peru and abroad, offering much more than just education, but an entire social circle and a process where a cultural capital is both rewarded and given. The students that attend these institutions are clearly predisposed to gain cultural capital due to their habitus and are hence the perfect candidates for social reproduction through cultural reproduction. A clear example here is Arman Olgun, a student who attended a boarding school in Armenia, which rewarded and reinforced his cultural capital, pipelining him into attending the University of Chicago, another elite institution.
I'm Arman. I'm a third year in the college. I'm double majoring in economics and theater and performance studies. So she was always on the hunt for, which students are interested in what. Can we teach people duduk? Like there were so many duduk lessons offered, which is like Armenian national instrument. She was always on the hunt of like, are people interested? How can we offer them like lessons? But also out of the people who have played before, how can we make sure that they continue playing and continue performing? So she would always like hunt people down. Like we have this concert coming up, do you want to play this? Do you want to play that? And she would offer so much guidance. Yeah. And we also had like lots of touring groups come, like they were sometimes Armenian, we had people coming from UCLA or like abroad. And they would like just host concerts for our small UWC audience. And she'd always make sure that we had the opportunity to have master classes with them, which is, yeah. And like my first master class, it was with like a violin professor from UCLA that she arranged a master class for me to be part of. And it was very nice experience, yeah.
Do you think that prepared you for a symphony orchestra here at Chicago?
I mean, not specifically that master class, but sort of seeing what's possible and getting that exposure. I think most of my music journey is always to like watch someone watch someone play and just be so impressed and going, oh, I want to play like that. And then that's always the urge to practice. That's always the initiative to practice. So like getting those like external people who sort of gave us a reality check on what music actually can be was, I think, what made me strive for a bigger ensemble.
In this manner, we can see how Arman's school not only validated his cultural capital, but also cultivated it in a way that he was receiving masterclasses from violin professors from UCLA. Being that he was only 16 years old, he was already exposed to an entire new realm of possibilities. That habitus clearly benefited him tremendously. In this manner, we can now understand what Bourdieu means by cultural reproduction and how this influences social reproduction too. Because at the end of the day, not everyone starts the race from the same place. Some already have an advantage at it. Some don't even know the rules. Comprehending this is fundamental in creating systems that are fairer and inclusive of students that may not come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Because, although things may be like this for now, they don't have to be. We should do better. We can do better.